Now he's demanding a 50-hour work week for Germany so that we can move forward again, while he can't get anything done himself. And at the same time, he's really picking a fight with the SPD now, or he's just lying to us from start to finish again, that we finally work at least 10 hours more per week to move this country forward, while his approval ratings are much, much worse. And to put it in his own words, just finally step down. The people don't like you anymore. He said that himself back then only to Olaf Scholz, and that's what we're looking at today. Because the coalition infighting is now spreading not only to Reike Klingbeil, but now even more to Reike Klingbeil. And at the same time, Tim Wies comes along and says he should start keeping a list. All that and much more in political Berlin today. And I'm telling you, it's getting absurd and just downright laughable. If you'd like to support this channel, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscription, and I'd say roll the clip, including what Carsten Maschmeyer had to say about it.
I'm telling you.
Fauler Haufen.
Position heraus war Friedrich Merz immer schnell mit Kritik. Nun, wo selbst die Verantwortung hat, kommen Sprüche statt Lösungen. Die Menschen in Deutschland haben keine Arbeitsmoral.
Just that.
What's your opinion on this? Do you have a work problem, or do you have a Chancellor problem here in Germany? I definitely only have a Chancellor problem, who also commented on pensions again yesterday. Now it's just basic safety net. There's nothing more in it for retirees. With that, he's also losing his core voter base right before the early elections, which will have to be called soon, because the SPD hit back hard yesterday and said more time. He should start by listing what's missing. Yes, a classic shopping list here in Germany showing where we have shortages and where excess profits can be skimmed off. While more and more companies here in Germany are now filing for bankruptcy. Even one of the largest machinery manufacturers is now saying we have to reduce from 270 employees to about down to 30 to 40 just to remain competitive at all. And well, the Chancellor, what did he actually say yesterday? Just listen to it for a moment.
We have rested on our laurels, we've become a bit too comfortable, and if you look at China today, even if you look at America, the dynamism that still exists in these economies, especially now in China, is something we lack.
What he means by that is that we actually need the same workload as in China. And in China, people work about 49.6 hours per week. Friedrich Merz wants to have that here in Germany as well. That's why he says, once again, especially this morning, that the pension package still needs to be fine-tuned. There actually needs to be a basic safety net, which, by the way, is even criticized within the CDU itself, because just imagine you can't win elections anymore with people who are, for example, in nursing homes. That's exactly where our Minister of Health currently wants to make cuts, because she wants to make it even more expensive. And now this is where the big problem comes in, meaning that Friedrich Merz is finally confronting Klingbeil, or maybe not. Listen for a moment.
Always the others.
I'll have another serious talk with the coalition partner tonight. I expect the Social Democrats to also resolve some of the blockades that we have unfortunately encountered again and again in recent weeks and months.
Yes, we watched it together live last night. No, they keep blocking things. They're fighting for survival. The SPD, yes, every single vote counts. For the SPD, it's about political survival. Those guys are on the verge of getting knocked out. Do you seriously think they'll move even an inch toward them? By the way, just as a side note, the entire Bundestag didn't know anything about it, so Friedrich Merz probably just called Lars Klingbeil and said, "Hey Lars, I gave another really dumb speech. Could you maybe just not be so harsh with me anymore? And please, yeah, maybe stop having these left-wing party conventions about how to be an economic destroyer." That's probably how that conversation went yesterday. If he even talked to Lars Klingbeil at all and the whole thing wasn't just another lie, I don't know. What do you have to say about that? But I still actually believe that it was just another lie. But Carsten Maschmeyer sums it up for us extremely well.
Germans don't work enough. Seriously, Friedrich Merz? People in Germany get up early in the morning, pay taxes and contributions, and keep this place running. And then the Chancellor comes along and tells his citizens they're too lazy. How out of touch is that, really?
Some people would say that's exactly what they do with the money from the budget too, even though it's so urgently needed here in Germany. Well, it goes to Sudan, it goes to the Gaza Strip, it goes to war zones and also to Ukraine and who knows where else. Well, and the record, the real record of this Chancellor looks something like this.
We have to make an effort, we have to roll up our sleeves now, and we have to make this country fit again step by step.
Wrong clip, that's wishful thinking. What really happened?
He's actually lazy. What was promised was an autumn of reforms, but what we got were working groups that just go around in circles. The winter passed without an avalanche of reforms, and there's no sign of a reform boom this spring either. Of course, it's always someone else's fault.
And among those to blame are Nina Worken, Katharina Reiche, Lars Klingbeil and Dirk Wiese. And all the others sitting on the ministers' benches, whatever their names may be. They're all to blame except for him who can't put his foot down at all and just wants to keep telling us things ever since he was in China. That we have to work 50 hours a week and at the same time retirees only get basic income support. Of course he does everything right, and he only works day and night for it and doesn't fly around the world worrying about foreign policy. Somehow things are getting even worse for us than before. And that's why I actually think this statement is pretty good. Just like working groups that are basically just going around in circles. A lying chancellor that people just can't stand anymore. And actually even back then Olaf Scholz himself said it. Don't cling to your seat, just go and do it right away.
I was the one who wanted to give the impression. Somehow it's not up to me, but everything we've done so far just isn't enough either. Well, I think the impression he gave there last night was more than unfortunate.
Yes, and Lars Klingbeil immediately retaliated for such statements. What did he do? He made sure that the coalition crisis escalated even further. He put all of Katharina Reiche's projects on hold. That's it, it's over. Nothing at all will be done about the energy crisis here, like getting more gas power plants or maybe even nuclear power or anything like that. The funding was stopped. By the way, that's what Handelsblatt and also Bild reported this morning. Lars Klingbeil is furious. And Katharina Reiche immediately responded on Deutschlandfunk and said, well, to put it briefly, this person is basically out of his mind. And if things are supposed to move forward here, then you shouldn't necessarily cut the funding for the Minister of Economic Affairs. When we are in, yes, the worst crisis that Germany has ever experienced in the post-war period. And this political commentary builds on top of that because Dirk Wiese, as I mentioned at the beginning, now really wants Friedrich Merz to first write a budget plan.
It was Friedrich Merz who, from the opposition, repeatedly criticized Olaf Scholz for holding on to his chancellorship, even though his approval ratings are so low. And now, basically, he has ended up in the same position as Olaf Scholz was back then.
Yes, but wait, there's still a small difference. The traffic light coalition broke down over 3 billion euros that they couldn't include in the budget. While this government is currently dealing with 162 billion in debt, and they don't know where they're going to get the money from. So there is a small difference, just as Friedrich Merz has repeatedly said in the Bundestag. Finally, call a vote of confidence. So, Mr. Merz, lead by example, do it. Do what you've constantly preached to us. At the next possible opportunity, stand in front of the cameras in the Bundestag and finally, as you once demanded, call a vote of confidence for Germany. So that at least we can have a new election campaign, breathe a sigh of relief, and hopefully we have some opportunists here in Germany, the SPD and the Greens, turn their backs in order to get a chancellor here in Germany who actually puts his foot down for once and doesn't take into consideration, quote, the lazy Lars. So Mr. Merz, stand up and call for a vote of confidence. You would at least give a lot of people some hope for a few weeks. And all these reform plans, this whole reform disaster chaos here in Germany would be off the table for now. And maybe then we can listen to the junior partner of the CDU later on. that they might have managed to implement reasonable reforms by the end of a legislative period to modernize this country, to get this country back on track. But the people here in Germany, well, they love you about as much as a stone in their shoe during a marathon.
While at the end of March, 34% of those surveyed were still satisfied with the work of the government,
By now, at the end of March, 80% would be happy about it. Great play on words, isn't it? I just had to show it to you. Because I specifically took one from Focus, since they have slightly different numbers that are a bit more favorable to Friedrich Merz. But if you look at Axel Springer, Welt, or even ARD and ZDF, and by the way, NTV as well, you can clearly see here that the approval ratings are, well, 80% unfavorable. So end of March, 80% of all Germans would be happy. I wish you a wonderful start to the day, because I believe this government definitely won't last any longer than the summer break. Then the next budget plans will come, and they'll have to somehow explain to us how they're going to come up with the next 13 billion. Oh well. And by then, it should also be clarified where exactly the special funds and off-budget borrowing actually went, and that they have to be paid back. And then 264 billion turns into well over 400 billion, roughly speaking. We don't actually know that yet because the numbers simply haven't been published yet. That means this government has some kind of problem ranging from 264 billion up to 3,370 billion. Again, the traffic light coalition failed in 3 areas.